Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new panel discussion by Banking Frontiers. We have an interesting topic, and I would say a seriously interesting topic, Cloud Avatar. We're looking at cloud, which is an emerging technology, or we're not quite sure it's emerging. It's been here for quite some time and well established. We're talking of Avatar, which is something very interesting. Avatar is a reincarnation or a representation of something from older times into current times. So today we have a lot of CIOs and CTOs among us, and we're going to try to discuss how they are becoming new avatars in the modern times to suit the needs which are driven by business, which are driven by risks, which are driven by compliance. So the whole dynamic and changing landscape, and then CIOs definitely have a huge task to keep the organization abreast of all the challenges and the opportunities. I have a very esteemed set of panelists. And to begin with, my name is Manoj Agrawal. I'm the group editor at Banking Frontiers magazine. And I now look forward to introduction from all our panelists. May I request Mr. Balaji to please give his brief introduction?
Hi, happy afternoon. Myself Balaji. I do represent Orange Retail Finance. We are a traditional digital company. What I mean traditional digital is we started as a traditional company since we cater to a type 3, type 4 kind of a town. And now we completely move ourselves to 100% digital. So we are kind of digital operations where we can able to completely do our end-to-end operations without seeing customer with our app, which is available in the Play Stores and with our web product, where I don't touch base with the customer or talk to the customer for any of my things. So completely my things is hosted in cloud and AIML, everything takes care of my credit decisionings. We are kind of early mover into this sector, I would say. We are learning a lot since being a small setup for us, huge learning opportunities are there. So before we scale, we are learning everything and we're trying to do, if there is any mistake, like kind of a fail fast, successful kind of a technology we're bringing everywhere. Excellent learning we had in the past 4 years of journey. It was very good. As we move forward, we can able to discuss upon what kind of things we have been doing it interestingly. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Balaji. We look forward to the highlights of your learning.
I'm Harish Mohan. So I'm from Wells Fargo, India and Philippines. So as you know, Wells Fargo is the US bank and with an asset of around $1.9 trillion. So in my current role, I'm HPP for Digital Technology and Innovation line of business. So I take care of all the engineering delivery for digital, for consumer banking, consumer lending, wealth, commercial banking, etc. So all the mobile, virtual assistant, fraud, etc. So yeah, thanks for inviting me, Manoj.
Thanks, Harish.
Myself, Dhanashekaran, CTO of Belstar Microfinance, and I'm a 25 years of IT banking veteran. Served in Asia Pacific, Singapore for more than 15 years, and I am taking care of the Belstar technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yes, greetings everyone. Thank you for inviting us. My name is Sridhar. I work for Tata Communications. I'm based in Bangalore. I take care of the cloud and security services business as a vice president here. I've been in the IT industry. Now this is 32nd year for me. I've been in India market, in Asia, based in Singapore. I've worked in the US. So I've been in companies like Intel, IBM, Dell, HCL before this in my career. So exciting times for us in this industry. So looking forward to the discussion ahead.
Sure, Sridhar. 30 years means I can say 3 avatars, definitely.
Most certainly.
Good afternoon, Orange Sangali Bank Limited. I'm working as a head of department IT, and I'm working last from 26 years.
Thank you, Akhil. So my first question to all of you is this. An avatar is a modern version of a past person that is suited for the current situation, for the current environment. As successful IT professionals, each of you would certainly have taken some bold steps in the past in your career, in this organization or some other organization. The question is that how are the bold steps that you're taking today different from the bold steps that you have taken in the past? This is more of a people approach, a people angle, not a technology thing. So anyone would like to open and share their experience?
So I would say like if kind of a bold step, what we need to do is we need to have a buy-in in what kind of a decision makings we are doing it with our system, with our complete ecosystem. Okay, first of all, we need to get convinced what is it you're trying to do. Okay, and if you don't have buy-in with yourself, we can't able to sell that to anybody. So first I would say let's have a complete buy-in with ourselves, completely convinced, then take it up to anybody. For example, in my real life experience, what I could share is when I joined this company like 4 years back. So when we building the organization, I told don't keep a data center. That's kind of I would say it's a bold decision in the organization. That means what means I'm eliminating tomorrow if I'm buying a server where I need to place because straight away we need to go to cloud only. Okay, so the thought process is getting eliminated at certain levels. So tomorrow, whenever I need a server, I'll straight away go to cloud. So one thought was I shouldn't have a decision to go to cloud or to host it. So like that, we need to see small things or bigger things where we can able to take a decision. And tomorrow, the decision making shouldn't be there for the same thing. So I think that kind of bold steps we can able to try to take it and try to sell it ourselves in the organization. Thank you.
So can I summarize by saying that the bold steps you're taking today are not core technology decisions, but bigger decisions?
Very true, very true. You're absolutely right. Because tomorrow you're eliminating one concept itself right now. Every time when you want to do a certain decision, the decision doesn't even come to you because it's been default what need to be done.
Okay, right. Very interesting. Harish, you wanted to share also.
Yeah. So look, I've been with Wells for the last 2 years. So some of the things that Wells Fargo has been embarking has been pretty bold and pathbreaking, I would say. For example, we have launched a lot of really great credit card products in the market in the last 3-4 months. So we can just Google Active Cash or Reflect Card. So they are really pathbreaking. Some of the features we have been doing is to capture the market share as well as give great customer benefits. Right. So on credit cards we have been doing. Similarly, on digital we have taken like bold decisions from completely revamping our mobile app. So we are going to launch a new mobile-first native app feature in January. So it's a great new customer experience. Similarly, we are going to be doing for a virtual assistant completely AI-driven. So there are a lot of path-breaking products, as well as our cloud strategy has also been announced. Right. So Wells Fargo is like going big guns on all the great products launches, as well as on the cloud. So.
Thanks, Harish. What about your personal experience?
Okay.
You see something bold that you are doing yourself?
Personal is, look, so in my experience, at least in the last few years, I have worked in various global banks, right? So I worked in a UK bank, RBS. I worked for Australia, New Zealand bank. I've been in Nordic bank, now in a US bank. So I've covered a lot of geographies, lot of banking. So it gives a really good perspective of where the global bank is. Situation is, what product sells, what engineering works, what technology works, etc. That way, I think I've been bold enough to take new opportunities, go around, learn and contribute. So that is something I'm passionate about.
That's fantastic, such a wide exposure. Yes, Sridhar.
Okay, I think the biggest change today is time. The boldest decisions that you've got to take are because the time window for everything is shrunk. That is from conceptualization to crystallizing it. Because at the time in the past, we had to conceptualize any idea. It took some time, and we had to actually source for options and then evaluate them. Today, when you think of something, multiple options present themselves to you right up front. So to that extent, your time is shrunk. But that means from then to your time to market, you've got to shrink it even further. And thereafter, the time to result, the time to ROI has shrunk even further. And then for you to revamp it and make course corrections has to be dynamic, and you don't have time, right? You don't have any slack for you to be able to implement it, because if not you, somebody else is going faster. So in all facets, you would notice in the 360-degree life cycle, the time has shrunk, which means the margin for error is coming down significantly. So I think that's the biggest and the boldest thing that one has to do, that you've got to get things right and get things right in the shortest possible window of opportunity that you have. I think that's the biggest. And technology has enabled that to happen, right? From in the past, if you took 6 months for a ALPM to be delivered to a bank, today it doesn't even take 6 hours for us to spin off a VM, right? So we're talking that scale of a difference, and you're talking several thousand times the power of the ALPM versus what you have today. So I think the biggest factor driving the boldness in decision making is time.
Time is very critical. In fact, I have even heard people say time is the ultimate currency, because that is the only thing in the world that is fixed.
That's right.
You can increase and decrease or something like that. Interesting. Friends, let's move on now. My second question is this. Since many banks are still in an evolving stage of cloud adoption, how do you see cloud as an enabler of narrowing the gap between business and technology? Does someone want to comment on this angle?
Yes, certainly, like banks, that's a big brother, is a kind of a extreme high regulation. The regulated industry in India, if we say, I say it's bank, no doubt in it, because RBI has a complete control over what bank need to do, what they shouldn't do. So there are complete guidelines are available for each bank or finance domain. So that's why I think on the other side, there are certain fintech companies who doesn't come under regulatory, they can able to adapt certain things much faster and quicker. But wherever the regulatory industries are there, the adoption rate might be a little bit slow because they need to get clearance from the regulator. Because new technology comes, the regulator need to understand it, then they'll get it cleared. They're also working fast and they can able to give the clear guidelines for it. As being finance domain, bank cannot violate whatever RBI says. So that's point number one. So what happened? There are certain criteria are there where it need to be hosted in India. There are certain norms are there, which banks are following it. But many of the banks, what they do is try to keep certain core in-house and non-core cloud. Everybody's kept on experimenting into what is possible within the domain. So I wouldn't say they are not coming to this avatar. I would say everybody's moving forward within the domain what has been prescribed to them. If they can able to move completely, they are moving completely. If they can't able to move, then they're trying to move certain non-critical applications to this and experimenting themselves. I would like to summarize with this here.
So my Balaji, just to add on to this, what do your business heads and business users, do they have some suggestions or concerns about cloud, or do they just want to leave it to the IT team?
The business head or for that matter, any functional team, they want that productivity from the entire function for it. IT is no more a silo. So IT works with every function. They are the business enabler for the industry, I would say. So what happened if one day a customer cannot log in at all? Then it's a business impact. Okay. Then it's a news, it's article, it's a Twitter message. Everybody re-forwards that if any bank or any industry is down for that matter, because due to technology, I think it's industry news right now. If one day some big banks are there, if they run out even for half an hour, only people take the screenshot and then they socialize it. So that's the way it's so critical right now for any industry for it. So I would say like the business enablers, what they need to do is they need to take the inputs from them, but the seamless operation need to be there. So the underlying concept, we need to come with a suggestion where it need to be done, how it need to be done, because they need 24/7 operations without downtime. Okay. So that's under your control.
Right, that's true. Harish, you wanted to add something?
Yeah. So look, so just adding on to Balaji's point, right? So what do the regulators want most from a bank? It's the resiliency, right? So they expect the bank to give a really great customer experience, no outages. So how is this possible? Cloud is one way which gives you an opportunity for an enhanced resiliency, right? So whether you want to, it's up to the bank, the risk appetite, that finance position, whether they want to go for a public cloud, multi-cloud, on-prem, etc. So their cloud strategy, right? So it gives that leverage to the business to make sure that the customer experience and the investment that they make for the money is highest, the opportunity is highest in case of a cloud. The other thing it also does is a cloud frees up a lot of bandwidth of the IT teams, right? So they don't need to worry more about the regular infrastructure concerns like patching, procuring, licensing, certificate renewal, and all this vulnerability. It frees up a lot of bandwidth. So the IT teams can now focus on the more important business problems, right? So you leave it to some of the better people to worry about it. You focus on what your customer needs, business needs. So that way, the business is going to get more money out of their investment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Can I request Dhanasekaran to add something on this perspective?
Yes, Manoj. So cloud definitely it narrowed the gap between business and then technology. Especially the business, what they are looking for is time to market and experimenting, shorter POC period, all are the need of the hour, because business, they wanted to meet that changing dynamics, which is very, very rapid. And as a technology leader, I can able to meet this kind of a business obligations when I adopt to the cloud. I would like to recall one of my incidents 10 years, almost 15 years back. I handled one mission critical project where we needed to deploy 100 servers each in Singapore and Hong Kong data centers. A simple procurement and powering up activity for these 200 servers, it took more than 2 months of the time period. However, if I would want to do it the same activity in cloud, I can spin these 200 servers within 3 or 4 days time. That it's a very huge time save for the business, and then they can able to launch any products or try out many kind of experiments and do A/B testings. All these things, it's expedite their process. So businesses, they are very, very open to adopt cloud.
Fantastic. So you're actually giving a practical example of what I said, that time is money, which is what Sridhar also said, that time is one of the most critical factors. Sridhar, you want to add something on business and technology?
Yes. See, the way I see, I think all three of them have given some fantastic views. I would just like to organize it in a different way. See, on one side, now banks are having, financial institutions are having to introduce, for example, multiple facilities or multiple features. Right? It could be a payment switch, it could be fraud detection, it could be international remittances, operations, etc. Right? A bank is looking more at what do they deliver to their customers. For doing that, what do they need? They need to understand their customer behavior. They need to understand closely what the customer's needs and wants are, or how have they been approaching in the past? How do I make it customizable and get it closer to the customer? So that's the second part. The third one is they've got to be, and I think all of them talked about how internet and mobile banking and a lot of things have changed the way we used to think about banking. We are no more dependent on that particular branch. You are not a customer of the branch, but of the bank, but anywhere you can use any ATM and stuff like that, right? So we need to look at how do we enable multimodal communication, right? For email, voice, chat, web chat, so many other vehicles that you've got to enable. So that's the second inside the Concentric Circle. So at the core of it, then you have a bunch of technology aspects to dabble with, right? You've got the cloud, you've got AI/ML, you've got IoT, you've got blockchain, you've got the technologies. So the change that I see that has happened in the last decade is that earlier, the core decision on technology was a boardroom decision. But today, the outcome is a decision. Right? Today, my conversations revolve around what my customer wants to deliver to their customer. It's no more about, Mr. Customer, you need, this is the biggest and the finest shining box, or this is the best database that you can buy. These are no more the board decisions. It's about, I want to launch this module and in this particular time so that my customer, I find that a certain category of customers are actually utilizing this, and I need to be able to provide this in the shortest possible time. Mr. Technologist, you tell me, how can you enable this for me? So the thought process, the conceptualization, and the outcome is gathering more importance. And I think that's the biggest outcome of how the business and the technology worlds are converging. It's no more technology for technology's sake. That's where I'd like to leave my thought, Manoj.
Absolutely. So to frame it, reframe it, you're saying that customer is king and the technology guy needs to know that.
A customer is king, but even the king needs wise counsel. That's why they've got the council of ministers. I want to be one of the council of ministers to my customer.
So my next question is this: the financial sector, the BFSI sector is perhaps the most regulated sector, and it has issues of compliance and certification and audits and security and whatnot. And with so many factors, one cannot say that, okay, I'm going to adopt this technology because it is efficient. That is insufficient. I mean, any solution, for example, cloud, has to work with all these kind of compliance and certifications and audit and all that. So when it comes to actually adopting cloud, what has been your experience with all these kind of issues, apart from just efficiency and speed and a cost kind of things, which are natural, but these compliance issues can't be ignored. What has been your experience?
See, certainly, like cloud means mostly like almost 80% could be in public. I don't know. I'm just roughly saying the number. Might be the numbers can be validated by somebody. Okay, majority of portion will be in a kind of a public cloud majority, and there's a small portion will be kind of in a private cloud, and then there's hybrid cloud which is emerging right now. Okay, if you go to public cloud, already there are certain security mechanisms. Everything is in place. But what I would say is, as we host our same data and everything in our place, we need to protect the data. It's our own sole responsibility, even if it is on-prem or even if it's in a cloud. Okay, so what kind of a security postures you're doing if it's on-prem, same thing need to be adapted in the cloud. So once again, everything relies with us, even though there are certain best practices available in the public cloud, try to adapt it. And whatever you do it in the on-prem, do the same thing and protect your data in the public cloud also. There are frameworks available, please do it. And then once in a while, keep your auditors, security auditors to go check, validate everything is fine, because there are many data thefts are happening, huge data leakages are happening. So it is on our own interest, we need to protect everything, because the data thefts, anything which leads right now, there's aberrant impact is happening. Like not only from stock market crashing down, the trust factor goes down from the customer standpoint. Okay, so building the trust takes too much of time. So try to do the basic things. What is that? Compliance 100% is required. No doubt in that. Comply. The compliance guidance has been given for us to safeguard ourselves. Okay, it's not that not to safeguard ourselves. The entire compliance mechanism is to safeguard our interest only. So I would say whatever complaint is there, please try to utter it, follow it, and keep doing your infosec audits randomly without informing anybody. Okay, and then try to do complete variations of audit. Take the inputs, try to build in, because being in a cloud, once again, there are a lot of Indian thefts could be there, security issues could be there. I would say it's all depend on us, but take the right partner with you. If you don't have the capability, build that capability of the partner, try to understand, because now it's completely matured. Though if you talk about 10 years back, then cloud was in the nascent stage. But right now it's completely matured. We will not do any mistakes at all if you're trying to migrate anything there. Okay, everything's a thorough, defined, well-defined model. There's no room to make any mistakes right now. So I would say take the help of experts. Will be really helping us to move forward for all this. That's my submission.
Okay, thank you, Balaji. Welcome. We have two new participants joining us. Welcome, Sundar. Welcome, Salil.
Hi, this is Sundar Krishnan, Chief Risk Officer, Reliance Nippon Life Insurance.
Thank you, Sundar.
Hello, hi, this is Salil Nair. I am the Chief Technology and Information Officer at Northern Art Capital.
Thank you, Salil. Welcome aboard. So friends, we are talking about compliance and audit and certification kind of issues as distinct from relating to cloud, as distinct from cost and time and efficiency and those kind of parameters. Sundar, would you like to comment on how cloud is different? Is it easier or is it tougher to do compliance and audit and those kind of things using or when adopting cloud in general for any application?
So coming back to your question before the question posed, which is on the efficiency, speed and access, definitely cloud brings in that advantage because the cloud provider is a specialist and gives you that efficiency, time scale advantages and cost efficiencies in the long run.
Right.
The audit part is a difficult part because it's technical. But once you know that you have knowledge, you have necessary skill sets and necessary tools, it becomes easier because you know what you're doing and you set. So as Mr. Balaji said, if you have a well-defined model, well-defined process, well-defined governance standards beforehand, and you go in that path, then it's easier to audit, secure, and the path is well chosen. But if it's an arbit effort to just to get into cloud because everybody is getting for cost efficiencies and you don't plan well, then you could get into more governance issues than the normal scenario. That's how it is. So I've seen cloud implementations which are not so great because many things are uncertain. I've seen cloud implementation, far more cloud implementation, well efficiently managed, and cost efficiency is there. So because if you secure beforehand, if you're tied up well in the legal agreements, if you have the sound architecture, the process is well defined, then the whole thing is very smooth. And it doesn't matter what information you store, because as you know, even in the rack on the ground, things are not secure. We have problems in securing data. So even if it's in cloud, you would have security issues, audit issues. So you'll have to sort it out well and govern it well in terms of standards, process, where you do it, where you reach out and where you adapt.
Okay, that's great. That's pretty clear cut you put it. Anyone has a new or a different perspective to share on audit and compliance for cloud?
The compliance other thing I thought I should have shared is the other issue of where the data is. You have this data needs to be within the country. And if your service provider is outside the country, how do you handle it? Do you have a copy of that? All that goes out into a server in India, one way to reach out. Because this problem is there because when the information is sought and required, it takes a lot of time if you're an international service provider and if your SLAs are not well sorted out.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of time to weed out data and give it to the police or intelligence or fraud prevention officials, compliance officials, or regulatory officials. So custody of data that's why important in the country. Unless if you have well-defined channels to give the data quickly. And so from that angle, I've seen and I've handled personally issues where we reach out to the service provider, but the time taken gets longer. And sometimes especially in the fraud scenario, you need to reach out quickly and give out data to police and action has to be taken quickly. Then you have a problem in that. So that's a compliance regulatory issue where regulators have insisted that cloud customer data or some kind of data, not all data, the data that are important needs to be within the country. Copy of that needs to be within the country.
Sridhar, may I request you to add to that what Sundar has said, and particularly because your organization has a banking cloud. So have you built in some banking compliances? What have you added to make it banking cloud?
Sure. So I think the Sundar and some of the other speakers also pointed out very clearly, as if the existing compliances requirements were not enough. This whole thing about data and the dynamics surrounding data has become very important. How do you handle personal data? All that is becoming extremely important. The concept of privacy, as they call it. So what we did was that there's no shortage of the cloud technologies or cloud products availability in the market today. But the fact is the banking industry has been the pioneer in technology adoption. They have brought the digital transformation. So it is important for us to ensure that we are able to provide secure, compliant, as well as a reliable kind of an infrastructure to them. So we started from what will be the compliance parameters that needed to be adhered to. For example, it could be something as simple as a three-way DR. So a three-way architecture. So you've got a data center, you need a near DR, and you need a far DR. And that from a different seismic zone. So starting from small things like these, from physical availability, all the way up to providing them three things: visibility, governance, and compliance across the framework. Right? So, for example, as you provide more scale, as you provide more resources on the cloud, associated with that is the question of are you keeping it secure? Right? Because you're going to enable a lot of open banking ecosystems. You're going to provide a lot of API drivers. You're going to provide cloud native banking operations. So as you begin to do that, how are you keeping it secure? Data at rest, data in motion, and data in use. How are you going to handle the data? So we have taken the care in each and every one of these aspects, and we have tried to put the solution together, which is scalable, at the same time provides the right kind of the readiness for the banking operation. So, for example, we provide everything up to the layer of the application, so right up to API gateway as a service. So all that the bank has to be worried about is just handle the application layer, just handle the application lifecycle. The rest of it, up to the containers, up to the databases, all of them as a service we provide on our banking cloud itself. So the customer now knows, the bank or the banking financial services industry or customer knows that they have all the resources that they need, and they know it is compliant, secure, and a data resilient. So that's the way we have structured this financial services cloud. And happy to let you know that our first financial services customer client is already tenanted into our infrastructure, and operations are on, and we are on the verge of getting 2 more customers within this month. So I think we've had a blazing start right up front.
That's interesting.
So this would be more as more of a Finacle as a service, right?
Was that to me, Salil?
Yeah.
No, we are not into the application space. Finacle is an application. We are not into the application space. We provide the infrastructure. At the moment, we are working with multiple ISVs to provide we are actually going with them because these are early days. But over time, we will have a bouquet of the ISV providers who will be providing these applications as a service from our platform as well.
Okay.
There is already one ISV who's on our platform, but there are a couple of others whom we are talking to right now. So I think come March, we would have at least a basic portfolio to speak of.
Okay.
So we call it the ISO Fin Cloud.
Okay.
Is there a full form for ISO?
ISO is our brand name. ISO Private Cloud, ISO Fin Cloud, ISO Storage. So ISO is our brand name.
Karthik, my question is this. Do you want to speak about the compliance perspective, or do you want to speak about alignment between business and technology?
No, compliance perspective, we are also suffering with compliance part. As we have a ASP, CH is an ASP for us, and they are managing data center and application both.
Okay.
And network also from 2019. Yeah, and there's some regulatory compliances and RBI framework, as you are aware of RBI framework. So we are suffering a lot of problems, a lot of issues in the compliance part.
Okay.
With them.
Harish Mohan, please go ahead.
No, what was the question? International perspective?
The question is, do you want to give us an international perspective for a multi-country, for a bank across multiple countries? How do compliance and audit and certification issues pan out when adopting cloud?
Look, so the big advantage that we have with some of the major cloud providers, right? So whether it is the Google or whether it's in Microsoft Azure, so they have a very matured governance, risk and compliance process in place, right? So they support a lot of compliance process, whether it is ISO 27000 or whether it is the PCI DSS. So they have a very mature process. They have a quarterly business review process with you. They let you audit very frequently. So the way to go about this, you agree this upfront with them as I think Sridhar or the other person was saying, you need to engage with your cloud service provider early on, agree on all the legal conditions, agree on the compliance process, then you just follow through that. Because a lot of these processes are already in place, so we don't have to reinvent it. It's only the tailoring or fine-tuning that you have to do for your own banks. So upfront discussion and transparent discussions goes a long way in the compliance world.
Okay, fantastic. Great, let's move ahead. We have discussed risk and compliance. We have discussed technology and business. We have discussed bold moves. That's how we started with. My next question is this: at this stage in the cloud journey, in current times, what stage is your cloud journey in? Do you see a lot more migration and adoption of cloud happening very quickly because that's what business is requiring or business is pushing for? Or do you still see a slow and steady approach to cloud adoption where there's still much more to be learned? What kind of applications can you move to cloud in the near future? As not in your organization, but in general, as an industry, what do you see this trend? Maybe we can request Dhanasekaran and Salil to comment on this, the maturity of cloud and the pace of adoption.
So we have everything on the cloud. There is nothing on premise today. So I keep telling that even my print server is on the cloud. So if somebody sits in the office and gives a print, it'll go all the way to the cloud and come back and print. And that's the kind of adoption that we have taken with cloud.
Amazing.
And the reason why we could do is that we could leapfrog, and we were recent starters. We started this journey about 3.5 years back, and the cloud itself has matured to a certain level by that time. So the way I see the future, I think cloud is here to stay. Everybody will have to move to the cloud. I don't think we have a choice. So initially, maybe people might look at moving to the cloud primarily to save cost, but I think that shouldn't be the only reason to move to the cloud. I mean, cloud is where the innovation is going to happen. That is where all the new operating models, new products, everything is going to be set around the cloud, and software as a service, platform as a service. So that's going to the future. So unless you are ready to adopt and take advantage, you are already on the cloud, you'll not be able to take advantage of all these new offerings. Say, for example, you will very soon have very advanced AI models coming from Microsoft or Google. And if you're already in any of these clouds, it will be very easy for you to leverage them. Just an example. And if you're not, I mean, you are going to be a laggard in the business. That's my view.
Salil, I want to ask you, since your organization took a decision around 3 years ago to move everything to the cloud, at that time, was it considered as a safe decision or a bold decision?
It is a bold decision. I mean, it was a very bold decision at that time. And when I look back, I mean, the reason I could do it is primarily because I remember way back in 2006-07, we were building a data center from scratch. We just converted, I was with FIS at that time, we converted our meeting room into a data center. Okay, that was the period, right? So you empty that space, you build from scratch, and we thought, okay, this capacity will be enough. That was enough for 3 years, like 2010-11, that was all filled up. I mean, you install the FM200, you install the fire safe, the base, which is not fireproof, it's very fireproof and all that, building from scratch. And come 2011-12, all these hosted data center come into play. And since you have the direct experience of having built it from scratch, you could very well go and check, okay, how is your data center built? So that co-location was easy. And co-location also worked very well for like 3-4 years. And then came the cloud. So who will go and adopt it first? So having built data center, having done hosted data center, it was easy. I mean, easy in the sense we could ask the right question to the cloud providers in terms of how they have done it, what are the security controls, what kind of allocation is done for each users, how do we build some amount of control around that. So with that knowledge, that decision was taken.
Okay.
It was a bold decision. I mean, looking back, I mean, today it may not look like that, but I think I remember contemplating whether we should build, I mean, should it be a hosted data center or a cloud, hosted data center or a cloud, deliberated for quite some time. I think the decision was taken to have everything on the cloud. And
based on your experience, I wouldn't be surprised if your service provider learned something.
Yes, I mean, it was both ways. Yeah. And that was really useful in the sense we could scale it up very fast. And I mean, especially in COVID period and all, we saw, I mean, that whole journey was really useful. And the future, I'm thinking, and I'm taking it ahead, thinking that we are far better placed to leverage some of the new cloud offerings which will come our way.
And are you already multi-cloud or more of single cloud?
Today we are single cloud, but it's easy to be multi-cloud also. So one of the guarded decision or the guarded way in which we moved was we took all infrastructure as a service. That's easy. That's the first step. Now we are slowly maturing into software as a service, platform as a service, and I think it's a journey.
Dhanashekhar, may I ask you to comment on this stepwise approach: infrastructure as a service, software as a service, platform as a service? How do you see, where do you think organizations should be bold today? Where should they be conservative?
Right now, we are moving towards a banking as service. It is the next offering in the place. And we are hearing about the open banking. APIs are already available. So anybody can able to start and providing a banking service without even getting a RBI license. So the innovation and then cloud has provided this kind of opportunity, and world is completely moving on this kind of services. So cloud, SaaS, PaaS, BaaS. So I don't know what kind of other services we will come up with it. So the future is only services. And the API cloud, they have opened up a big new world to us that is highly scalable and highly flexible and highly agile.
I've asked a lot of questions. Is there any question anyone want to ask each other? There's quite a variety of panelists in this group.
Yeah, more than a question, one inputs, like people been talking about infra as a service, passive. So now it has come to a stage where anything as a service, they call it as XAAX, anything as a service.
So from something as a service to anything as a service.
Now it has come to that stage, yeah. So everything as a service now been offered.
You might have heard that story about there were 4 people named somebody, nobody, everybody. I'm reminded of that. Will not get into. Okay. What other interesting points would anyone like to share or to ask someone else?
I would say one interesting point might be like the cloud maturity adoption. What people are doing right now is they're doing complete application modernization. They're moving to containerization. So those kind of innovations are happening in the one space, I would say. So that's one thing every company is moving forward, right?
And do you see cloud players having a role in that application modernization?
Certainly, cloud players are inevitable in that, certainly, because the knowledge is required. They also need to scale up, certainly, yeah.
A quick view from my end was from a platform perspective. I think for major banks where there is like thousands of applications, I think it's a question of laying out the cloud migration principles very clearly from multiple perspectives, right? From compliance, encryption, governance, security. So you have the foundation building blocks in place. Then you take an inventory of your platforms. Then you decide what is the best approach for it. It could be a lift and shift. It could be a refactoring. It could be a replatforming. It could be a decommissioning. It could be a modernization. There are like 8, 9 possibilities that are there for every platform. So you come up with your archetype, your playbook. Then you go with platform by platform. At the same time, you also work out what is the most efficient building strategy for your platform. So do you want to pay it by memory, CPU, data, or you want to build more efficiency using pay-per-use, right? So there are a lot of opportunities to play around. So it's for each individual bank to figure out. But laying the cloud migration principles, clearly articulating it, is going to be very important.
Friends, I am Babu Nair. I am the colleague of Manoj Agarwal from Banking Frontiers. One of the most important thing in the last 2 months that I have been doing a study and research on cloud, I have been noticing that many of the bigger banks which had not gone into cloud full-fledged are now slowly trying to map a cloud strategy, map a multi-cloud strategy, and map a cloud strategy per se. Now, I think we have people like Sundar also here. Sundar has been anyways from the risk management side and from the security side. Sundar, have you seen organizations mapping a specific security strategy for the multi-cloud or for the hybrid cloud? And maybe Sridhar can also second it later as per your experience in the sector.
So the more matured organizations which have adopted cloud have specific processes, standards, security, risk management guidelines to manage cloud. There are many organizations who use cloud and test it out. So they're not necessarily as part of the strategy, but more operationally or tactically. they may not have some special auditing or security standards, but people who have this as part of the design, they have something specific for cloud. How do you operate it? How do you secure it? What architecture to adopt? What things to manage, etc. So that's how organizations are maturing. Of course, all this can change eventually when everything is cloud, as people said. So we're moving towards that because it brings in lots of efficiencies and capabilities.
Interesting. And I think globally also, if you see Singapore kind of countries or many of these countries have given an open hand to organizations to look into cloud. And all that they say is put a proper governance structure into place and an accountability structure into place. And that structure is something that people are trying to learn and take it to the next.
So you will have to test what is new. You'll have to go through a process of governance process. Think tank on how do you govern it, and what's the cost, etc. So you have to look at the total cost of POC of cloud, moving on to cloud, and then look at the security. So again, cost is not the only, as somebody said, cost is not the only decision why you move on to cloud. It's more other things. You want to be there as a strategy, as part of your business and distribution. So it's a way to move in now, and that's what it is.
Thanks a lot, Sundar, for that. Sridhar, when you are mapping the cloud strategy for a financial cloud, and do you get requests from the financial organizations on specific mapping strategies for the cloud kind of stuff?
Most certainly, yes. In fact, they are no more separate decisions. I think it's more conjoined twins now. So we, just a while back, we traced the journey from own data center all the way up to the cloud, right? Likewise, what has happened is when it was a concept of own data centers, it was okay for them to have captive security operations with a set of people there and a set of technologies bought there. But in a dynamic world such as now, as you start acquiring more and more resources on the cloud, naturally the next question comes up is am I keeping it secure? Now it varies across, if I can say, at least 4 parameters, right? The first one is about the identity, because the identity can be the most compromised. It can be insider traded, it can be external, it can be any of those. So identity, the concerns start about, identity and access management. How am I protecting it? Next comes the devices. When you have so many devices, anytime, anywhere, from any point, for any length of time access, how much, how far, and how do you want to give the access? Then applications. Do you have the right kind of applications? Are they secure? We know what can happen when a code gets compromised or a compiler gets compromised. We've seen that happen in the recent past. And lastly, we talked about data. So the 4 aspects, that is the application, the identity, the devices, and the data, to provide the visibility, governance, and the compliance is becoming very important. And most often, these are like conjoined twins. The discussions happen together. We are asked about, along with that, is my network also secure? The denial of services, the distributed architecture that you have, because you've gone from from the vantage point where we sit, given that that's our core bread and butter business, right? The network, right? We have the visibility on network, cloud, as well as security from a single vantage point. And that gives us the advantage because we have moved from point to point crisscross mesh connections to just one internet pipe. Everybody from everywhere is just connected to the internet, hops onto the internet, and you enable services. So for us to be able to also secure the network becomes an important aspect. Only then we are able to get the end-to-end visibility of the entire infrastructure that the customer has got. Yeah, back to you, Bob.
Interesting. And also there is definitely a lot of talk about the data in transit, especially the data in transit when it gets out of your network or out into the cloud there. So that has also been a major talking point for most of the people in terms of security perspective.
Data at rest, data in transit, and data in use, all 3.
Absolutely. And Salil, did you map a separate strategy for especially for having a cloud specific thing?
It was kind of like that, not specifically with a roadmap. It was more of a journey, and we were all moving in together, learning together.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. But what it has helped is like the business and technology gap, that has significantly reduced because of that.
Interesting. Over to you, Manoj.
Sure, thanks.
Babu, for those insights and for those questions. Any other closing points from anyone, or shall we call it a day for this session?
I think cloud has become an important element and journey of technology and financial services and business and distribution. So more organizations adopt governance and plan well before, better it is.
Coming from a true risk professional. Thank you. Thank you all very much. It's been a wonderful discussion. I think we covered a lot of grounds. I personally heard a lot of interesting things. I appreciate you all. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you,
discussion.
Manoj. Thank you
Thanks
to
for
four
a wonderful
panelists.
panel.
Had a very nice
Thank
learning.
you.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.